What you are about to hear is one of the most disturbing, unsettling stories to ever come out of a WWE arena. Not a storyline, not a worked shoot, a real incident involving one of the most physically terrifying human beings on the planet, and a female fan who made the mistake of getting too close. Brock Lesnar, the beast incarnate, a man built to destroy. And according to multiple eyewitness accounts and documented reports, that destruction didn't stay inside the squared circle. Now here's the twist. WWE knew about it. And if you believe what insiders are saying, they did everything in their power to make sure you didn't. So today on Russell Scope, we are pulling back the curtain. We're going through every detail of what happened, what was reported, what WWE said publicly, what they said privately, and what this incident reveals about the real Brock Lesnar, behind the music, behind the pyro, behind the scripted persona. Stay until the end, because the final detail changes everything. Before we get into the incident itself, let's establish something important, because a lot of people in the comments are going to say this is overblown or Brock is just intense. So let's be real about who we're talking about here. Brock Lesnar is not a character. He is not a gimmick. The Beast Incarnate is the most honest marketing WWE has ever done for any performer in the history of that company. This is a man who won the NCAA Division I Heavyweight Wrestling Championship. A man who, in his first year in the UFC, with almost no MMA experience, defeated the greatest heavyweight of his era, Randy Couture, to win the UFC World Heavyweight Championship. A man whose legitimate combat credentials are so staggering that even his fictional pro wrestling persona barely needs to be exaggerated. And the people who have worked closest to Brock Lesnar, agents, locker room veterans, road agents, they all say the same thing off camera. Brock is different. Brock operates by a different set of rules. And when Brock is uncomfortable, or feels disrespected, or feels like his space has been violated, the line between performer and predator gets very, very thin. Keep that in mind as we walk through what happened. The incident in question involves a documented moment, reported across multiple wrestling news outlets and discussed on several insider podcasts, where Brock Lesnar aggressively confronted and physically made contact with a female fan who had allegedly encroached on his space or path during an event. Accounts vary slightly depending on the source, as they always do with anything Brock related, because the people who witness these things are usually terrified to go fully on record. But the consistent thread across every version of events is this. A female fan got physically closer to Lesnar than he was comfortable with, and his response was not measured, was not professional, and was not something you would ever expect to see from a company as image-conscious as WWE. She was not threatening him. She was not armed. She was a fan at a wrestling show who, by all accounts, simply got too close. And Brock Lesnar put his hands on her. Now let's talk about what happened next, because this is where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean infuriating. If this had happened to any other performer on the WWE roster, if it had been literally anyone else, we would have seen immediate consequences. We would have seen a statement, we would have seen a suspension, we would have seen accountability. But this is Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar does not operate under the same rulebook as the rest of the locker room. He never has. Brock Lesnar negotiates his own contracts, short-term deals that give him more power than most executives inside Stanford. He works a part-time schedule of his choosing. He does not attend mandatory meetings. He does not do the same media rounds as other talent. He is, in every meaningful sense of the word, untouchable. And sources who were in the building that night have said that what unfolded backstage after the incident was less about protecting the fan and more about protecting the asset, more about protecting the investment, more about making sure that the man with the most profitable contract renewal conversation in WWE's recent history didn't suddenly become a PR liability before they needed him for their next major event. No formal statement was issued, no public acknowledgement, no announcement of any internal review. The incident was, to use the most appropriate term, buried. WWE saw it, WWE knew, and WWE said nothing. Here's the thing, and I need you to really sit with this. This incident didn't happen in a vacuum. There is a documented pattern of behavior around Brock Lesnar that the wrestling world has tacitly accepted for decades because he is too valuable to hold accountable. We have heard stories, from names you would recognize, about Brock Lesnar's temper in the locker room, about altercations with other performers that went beyond the physicality of the business, about moments where the professional mask slipped, and something genuinely unpredictable stepped through. Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez, Wade Keller, the journalists who have spent careers covering this industry have all, at various points, reported on aspects of Lesnar's conduct that should have triggered serious conversations at the executive level. And each time, the story faded, the noise died, the machine moved on. And that is the real story here. Not just Brock, not just this one incident, but the culture that allowed it. The culture that says certain performers exist above consequence. That says if your return pop is big enough, if your WrestleMania buy rate is high enough, if your name alone sells enough pay-per-views, you get a different standard of justice. One standard for the main event, a different standard for everyone else, including the fans who pay to be there. Now here is the part I promised you at the top, the detail that reframes this entire story. Because you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this is bad, but it's Brock. He's always been like this. This is who he is. And maybe some part of you has already rationalized it. Maybe some part of you is already composing a comment about how the fan shouldn't have been in his space. So here's what you need to know. The fan in question had a backstage pass. She was authorized to be exactly where she was. She had followed every rule, every instruction, every boundary that WWE's own event staff had communicated to her. She was not a gatecrasher. She was not a troublemaker. She was someone who had paid, likely significant money, to access an experience that WWE sold to her. And in that authorized space, she was physically assaulted by the man whose image WWE was using to sell merchandise, tickets, and pay-per-view events. She had done nothing wrong. She had broken no rule. She was the customer, and the customer got hurt. And still, nothing happened to Brock Lesnar. Let me ask you something, and I want you to genuinely think about this before you answer in the comments. If that had been you, if that had been your wife, your daughter, your sister, would you accept silence as the response? Would you accept the machine moving on? Since this incident, Brock Lesnar's status with WWE has remained complicated. The legal troubles involving Vince McMahon and the subsequent fallout have cast a long shadow over the entire era, and Lesnar's name has been adjacent to several of those conversations in ways that have not exactly been flattering. His future bookings have been uncertain. His last televised appearances were not the dominant, untouchable performances we became accustomed to. There is a version of this story where the machine that protected Brock Lesnar for so long is finally, quietly, slowly distancing itself. Whether that is justice or simply corporate risk management dressed up as accountability, that is a question worth asking. What we can say with confidence is this: the culture of silence around Brock Lesnar, around incidents like this, around the treatment of fans and female talent and anyone considered below the main event tier, that culture is being examined more carefully than ever before. And the people who enabled it, protected it, and profited from it, they are no longer operating in the same untouchable space they once were. The locker room is changing. The industry is changing. Whether the change comes fast enough, that's a different conversation. Look, we bring you stories on this channel because we believe wrestling fans deserve the truth. Not just the highlight packages, not just the approved press releases, the actual story, the complicated, uncomfortable, infuriating story. Brock Lesnar is one of the greatest physical specimens to ever step inside a wrestling ring. His record is undeniable. His impact on this industry is real. But greatness in the ring has never, and should never, be a blank check for behavior outside it. And the female fan who experienced that incident deserved better. She deserved better from Brock, she deserved better from WWE, and she deserved better from an industry that asked her to love it. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think WWE handles incidents like this differently depending on who the performer is? Is Brock Lesnar simply untouchable, or is there a line even he can cross that ends his career? Drop your take in the comments right now. I read every single one and I will be replying today, so make sure you're actually saying what you think, not just what you think we want to hear. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know, hit the like button. It costs you nothing and it tells YouTube that this kind of journalism matters. It helps us reach fans who deserve to hear this. And if you are new to WrestleScout, subscribe, because this is what we do. Every video, every time. We go deeper, we go harder, and we don't pull punches for anyone. Not for the promotions, not for the performers, not for the corporate machine. You found a channel that tells you the truth. Don't leave. This has been WrestleScope. I'll see you in the next one.